Okay, so we're going to jump into things. So, welcome everybody to class 7 of FDI. We are going over sales. So, I'm, of course, your teacher, Matt Friedman. Of course, the man who needs no introduction, our community defender, El Nivelador, is here with us. If you got any questions in the chat, please put them in chat with 4 question marks. El Nivelador will get to them as soon as possible. Oh, got Harshad's coming to join us. Harshad, good to have you here. All right, let's jump into things. And of course, if you got any feedback, we've got a feedback email address right there at the top. Okay, we're going to jump into the spicy, exciting world of sales. No matter what in this industry, a lot of industries, you're going to be selling something at some point. All right, so our overall structure, we're going to get into class updates. Then we're going to jumping into understanding sales, going into who you sell to, what drives a sale, the different parts of a sale. Okay, actually, wait. Some people are having problems with the audio. Is anyone else not able to hear anything? Testing.
They may need to refresh their page.
Okay,
The majority
okay. That might just be an issue just with, okay, you guys can hear, good. Okay, all right, so going back into it. So we're going to be going into who you sell to, what drives a sale, the different components of a sale, counter sale tactics, things you should do that will actually be lowering your overall sales, which you want to try to avoid, and going into actual like sales, and then like a Steam sale. You can go to your homework, quick overview of the Design Professional program, which is the program that follows this one, and then we're going to get into tales from the front and questions and answers. All right, let's jump into it. So, quick update, FDI Live is happening November 23rd. We have rescheduled it and adjusted it to help provide a better overall event for FDI Live. It'll be happening at Edmonton Unlimited for those of you who can join us. November 23rd. It will be streaming live. So class schedule for everyone else will be exactly the same. It'll be a bit of a different setup because we're going to be in this awesome venue. And check your email for more info. Emails were sent out with additional information. Okay, so for always, it's not too late. You've got the whole weekend ahead of you if you do not want to be hanging out with me, Nivelador, and all these people in our amazing design class today discussing sales. All right. So, hey, stranger, what you buying? So we're going to jump into sales. Now, I know some of you are probably not super stoked about sales. It's something pretty dry topic. However, it is essential to everything that you do, from getting a job to pitching a feature to selling the game. You have to understand how sales work. So the thing is, before you dismiss it, hold it. You need to know how to sell. So try making a design that no one's interested in. Try selling a game that no one wants to buy. If you want anyone to do anything, I have to sell it to them. They have to buy into it at some point. A person has to buy into what you're offering, if that is your professional skills or your design or your game. You have to be able to sell it. So that's going from your resume, pitching ideas, selling the game, even a feature within a game. In the gameplay, you are selling concepts, ideas, mechanics to the player. There is a version of the Master Sword from Zelda, which we've got here, which is just a sword on a shelf with a label on it. Hell, even the title, Master Sword, is a bit of a sales pitch. It sounds something emotionally evocative. It's exciting. It's interesting. I want the Master Sword. That sounds like a great friggin' sword. So selling is essential. So I want to jump into basic stuff like, well, how do you sell? How does this stuff actually work? So first thing to ask, or first thing to know really, is who do you sell to? Like, what's this? How's this even working on a fundamental level? So you're always selling to a person. Back here. So all sales ultimately have a person behind them. And that person's only going to buy if they want to. Like, you can't stick a gun to a person's head and insist they buy your game. That's just, it's not legal, it's not allowed, it's not good. So people will only buy something if it's you and your skills or the game you're trying to ultimately get a customer to buy, if it's something that a person wants to buy. A lot of people forget this and they think that they are trying to sell either to algorithms or to a specific market trend. No, it's yours. At the end of the day, you're selling to a person. Each sale you're making, if you're making tens, hundreds, thousands, millions of sales, all of those sales happen at individual level. Always remember that. Even for, you know, a massive purchase, if you're in like, you're selling, business to business and you're selling units of about 10,000, well, there's still a person that has to authorize those 10,000 units to be sold. So you're always selling to a person. And that will only happen if you've nurtured a relationship. You nurtured that relationship with employer who you're selling yourself to, who you want to hire you. That's a relationship that you nurture. You also nurture that relationship with your audience, with your fans. Only sales will only happen if the relationship has been properly nurtured. And on top of that, all sales are driven by one thing. There's one key component to making a sale happen, and that's emotions. All sales are ultimately rooted in emotional decisions. As much as we like to think that purchasing decisions are logical and rational, at the end of the day, they're all driven by emotions. We use logic and rationale to back them up and justify them, but it all starts with emotional engagement. If people are not excited or interested or emotionally evoked by your sales pitch or what you're trying to sell, your sale is going to fall flat. So a couple examples. This is a great one. Cyberpunk. It gives you absolutely no information about what the game is. It is, well, a little bit. It's sci-fi. It's dramatic. Characters holding a gun. Looks like there's danger involved. It's just a character, a title, the strong yellow accent coloring or background coloring. This is ultimately about giving you a lot of emotion and very little information. The only information they really give you is a bit about the rating, the developers, and what platforms you can access it on. Another great advertisement for Mortal Kombat. Doesn't really tell you a lot about the game, barely tells you anything at all. Just kids getting attacked from people in an arcade machine. So you get the sense it is I imagine this is actually an advertisement for the arcade game itself, but it gives you a sense there's probably some kind of combat or fighting involved in it. But ultimately, this is just about getting people emotionally engaged with the product. And that gets them curious. They want to find out more. I want to do a quick check. How's my mic audio right now? Chat, could you let me know? Am I quiet? Someone in chat, help me out here.
Sounds good on
Sounds
Google.
great.
Okay, cool. All right. Just in chat, 80s and 90s were an interesting period in terms of game advertising. There was an earlier version of the slide where I had a ad from the 70s that was well-meaning but kind of in poor taste. The 70s was an even wilder time for advertising. All right. So you're making a sale, you're selling to a person, and you've got to get them emotionally engaged. Even if it's something super basic, just something like both of these ads tell you very little, but to get people interested. That's what starts a sale. So I want to give an example here of like, if I was to be pitching to Capcom the new inventory for Resident Evil 4. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the fantastic inventory system of Resident Evil 4, introduced a mechanic that everyone refers to as inventory Tetris. The Resident Evil series has got a substantial inventory-based game system. You go around the environment, you collect stuff. I can only carry so many items with me at the same time. The traditional style of this inventory system, I think it was just about every single item took up the same amount of space in your inventory. You had like 12 inventory slots. I could carry 12 items. Resident Evil 4 innovated that by having the inventory system as a grid. I believe it's a 6x10 grid, if I'm correct. That might be 6x12 actually. But its innovation is that all the items took up a different amount of space within that grid, and you could move around and rotate these items. So it was generally called inventory Tetris. If I was to be presenting the idea of inventory Tetris to executives at Capcom, I would not tell them about inventory Tetris. I would start with, what if our inventory gameplay was almost as fun as the actual gameplay itself? Gets them interested, gets them engaged. Now we can explain to them how we're going to do that. Well, a lot of players find our inventory system really limiting. How come 12 shotguns and 12 pieces of paper take up the exact same amount of space? So we're going to add a bit of a puzzle element. So whenever I've perhaps run out of space, I can rejigger what's in my inventory, find a little bit more space in there, gives the players a little bit of a break from action. They get to do a very simple, fun little puzzles or organizing stuff. It makes sense. It enables the player. Then they're getting back into the action and they're equipped and ready to go. But we don't want this inventory system to be a downbeat in the player experience. Again, I started it with, what if our inventory system could be almost as much fun as our main gameplay loop? Gets them excited, gets them interested, gets them emotionally involved. Then I'm backing it up with a bit more logic, a bit more examples. So another example, I think this is a really good one for the Steam store for Dragon Age Origins. The opening paragraph here is, explore a stunning world, make complex moral choices, and engage in bone-crushing combat against massive and terrifying creatures. That's a very evocative statement, and that's an excellent pitch for a game. I see too many games that come out that start with pitching you a list of features, which just does not get people's attention. As developers, we love it because that's how we think about our games. Players are thinking about this experience. Remember, anyone you are selling to will likely know less about the product or what you're trying to sell than you do. You have got to give them some kind of emotional onboarding to get them excited about it before you can explain it to them. If you just start by explaining it to them, you've lost them. You won't be able to sell them. That includes how you're presenting yourself in a resume, presenting yourself in an interview, pitching a feature, or closing a sale to the end user. So I want to jump over to El Nivelador. Do we have any questions from the chat?
We have one.
Great.
With, what happens when you intend on one emotion, but the audience feels something else from your ad?
Oh, that is an excellent question there. So that's, I would argue, is it's not that it's irrelevant, but it is, you got a surprising amount of flexibility there. Like, one of the things is, like, if people are emotionally engaged, they're aware of you. Even if it's a negative emotion, that is so much better than confusion or antipathy. They're at least going to remember you then, so you can approach them again and be like, hey, that thing you hated, we fixed it now. And here's our new, emotion-led pitch. You want to be careful with that, but there's a lot more play with that emotional engagement than you'll realize. A lot of people, at the end of the day, they care less about the specific emotion than they do that they were emotionally engaged in something. That's the thing that generally tend to remember, and that's what causes them, that spurs on their interest and curiosity about it. All right, anything else?
That is all the questions I had.
All right, we're going to charge ahead then. So, I'm going to let you guys in on a secret about sales here. This is important. Like I said, it's a secret. Don't tell anyone. So, if you're ever selling, you're only ever selling two things. You got an inventory of two things that you're selling. That's all your inventory is ever going to have in it. You're either selling them aspiration, oh, wouldn't this be cool? Or you're selling them avoidance. Man, you sure don't want this to happen. Those are the only two things you ever have to sell someone. That's it. Anything you're presenting, you're selling them these two things. Either, man, this would be great, or, hey, let's avoid this problem. If you're focused on that, that is 95% of how you're going to approach your overall pitch. So, did I get into that a little bit more? For aspiration, a good sales moves people towards a goal. That's what a sale is. You need them to take action. You need them to do a thing. You need to aspire them towards something. Get them engaged and be like, oh, I really want to do this. I want to check this out. I want to hire this talent. I want to approve this feature because this will be making things better. You're communicating them in a way to aspire them towards something. It's a thing with that Resident Evil 4 inventory feature. Imagine if our inventory system could be almost as much fun as our main gameplay. It's an aspirational quote. It gets them interested in seeing that happen. So once you've got your aspirational quote, you got them emotionally engaged, you want to support that with the minimum amount of evidence needed, the smallest amount. Remember, going all the way back to these guys, there's almost no information there. That's an effective ad. An ad that under-communicates is generally more effective than one that over-communicates. Now, there's limitations to that, of course. If it's just a blank wall with the word cyberpunk in a nondescript font, that will not work. But sweat every single detail when you're doing an advertisement. If you're presenting yourself in a resume, if you're pitching an idea, or you're trying to sell your game, every single little bit of additional information, consider that as potentially weakening that emotional stance and that level of interest. And we'll get into the reasons of that in just a little bit. There we go. All right, and the other thing you're selling is avoidance. So anxiety release is hugely appealing to people. Cognitively, we are wired more towards, we are more sensitive to loss than we are to gain. So we're very sensitive about potential pain points, potential vectors of loss, all that kind of stuff. So selling people anxiety relief is actually really appealing to them. This helps motivate a buyer as well. Remember, if I want to get a sale, I need someone to do something. If they are not interested in the thing that I am selling, they will be interested in a relief to a pain point that they currently feel. It's okay. If you're not really interested in this thing, well, are you perhaps worried about this problem over here, which this is going to help solve? So pulling that into the Resident Evil 4 example, it's like, well, they're not interested in inventory. Well, aren't you worried that our games are getting a reputation for being kind of stale, generic, and dull? Like, for a survival game, this should be exciting. Why are we boring the player every single time they bring up their inventory system? Gets them thinking, oh shit, we do have a problem there. I should probably fix that. That helps them get them moving, get them involved in a sale. So people will invest heavily in a solution to a problem. The insurance industry is massive for a reason. Ultimately, this is what the insurance industry is selling you. It is potential avoidance of a future problem. It is a massive motivator for people. Now, it's a bit of a spicy take here. The problem doesn't have to be real, but it should be. This was a detail I really went back and forth about including, but I think it's just something to be frank about. Like, in the world of sales, you will see many people that are pitching non-existent problems. And it's frustrating how effective that can be. There's several episodes of like comedy series and stuff that will just make fun of this. You know, there's a great example in the Simpsons about I'm trying to remember, they're trying to sell us, they're pitching a solution to bears invading the city of Springfield, even though it ultimately wasn't a problem. One person saw a bear once and suddenly became a huge market in selling bear deterrent. and then they leveraged that into, I believe it was a campaign against illegal aliens, which were both just non-existent problems. But they're like, well, once people believed it was a problem, they got very invested in it. It didn't matter if it existed or not. So, just for you to be aware of that. Of course, for God's sakes, if you're pitching avoidance, you're selling avoidance, have it be to an actual friggin' problem, or else you will quickly undermine your position. It is a bad thing, but be aware this is a tactic that can be used in sales. So, another thing is that if you're pitching avoidance, always be pitching a solution. You can't just tell people, oh man, we have a problem. And they're like, oh shit, we do. What are you going to do about it? The solution can't be, I don't know. Man, that's terrible. You know, you have to have a solution to them. This is actually a really good thing if you're on the job, if you're, when you're working as a design professional, if ever you have to deliver bad news, pitch them the solution to the bad news as part of like the communication. I have totally been in the case where like I have forgotten to do something because I'm human and mortal, and sometimes you just stuff slips in the schedule. I have to tell my boss about it. I will tell them that will be fixed on this date at this time, guaranteed. Are there going to be any problems with the schedule? Let me know and I will fix those as well. I was amazed at like that. Not only did I not get in trouble, they actually were super happy. I was like, okay, well, that's a way of approaching that. And honestly, I've even seen this myself quite recently. I was ordering banners for a convention, and the person at the banner printing store, they messed up the order, and the banners were not going to be ready for the day of the convention, which is even if there's an error on the banners, man, that's fine. I just need them for the convention. And like one of the managers reached out to me and said, okay, sorry about the mistake. I'm personally going over to the studio right now to get your banners ready for you. They will be ready at this time. I got there. The banners were ready. The entire problem went away. They've got them for the convention. They looked great. And I was noticed when I left the store, I was like, man, these guys were fantastic. I'm totally going to sign up with them again. And I thought, wait a minute. They're 3 days late on this order when they told me they were going to be on time. This doesn't make any sense. But honestly, I still want to work with them. We are not rational people. Perhaps some of you guys are. I know I certainly am not. Most people I've met have not been rational. So the thing is that if you're ever doing avoidance, always be pitching a solution. If you ever get into trouble, pitch the solution as part of communicating when you're in trouble. That will work very effectively. All right, couple examples. So this is these are the kind of ad that we've seen everywhere. It is just a straight up aspirational ad. Man, Leonardo DiCaprio looks confident and comfortable, and he's so confident. He doesn't have to wear his watch properly. He is just so engaged. He's thinking deep artistic thoughts while he just holds his watch. This is an aspirational ad. Now, this might alarm some of you guys, and I hope you're sitting down for this. If you get a TAG Heuer watch, that does not turn you into Leonardo DiCaprio. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, and I don't think a lot of people would argue with this, it kind of does nothing for your overall status, your career, your standing in life. If I sit around with a TAG Heuer watch in my hand on a street corner, no one's going to give a shit. Some people will just be very confused. They'll probably want to know why I don't know how to wear a watch properly. But still, these kind of ads are very successful because they're aspirational. You picture yourself like, oh man, that is something I would like to be. How do I do that? Oh, a TAG Heuer watch must be how that happens. I see some people in chat are already want to get their TAG Heuer watches. It's an effective approach. But this is the thing. When you're pitching something, presenting yourself or a feature or a game, being aspirational, very effective. Here's an example from an insurance company. This is an example of avoidance. This is a great advertisement. Miracles happen, but don't count on them. Starts with the thing of, oh my God, a tree fell on the car. Oh wait, it hasn't fallen on the car. However did that happen? Alliance. Man, I sure don't want to have a tree fall on my car. Now I'm worried about that. Alliance is the solution to that. This is one of those trillion-dollar industries out there. Insurance companies know what they're doing. They know how to pitch. So there's the thing. If I want to get someone motivated, remember, selling them, would it be pain relief or avoidance, can also be very effective. I want to get them towards a position and away from where they currently are. That's how you get them motivated for a sale. Get them moving towards closing that sale, proving a feature, hiring you on, buying the game. This is one of my favorites. I think this is the current advertising campaign that's going on for iPhone. This is a $1 trillion company advertising. They're using 3 words, a handful of colors. There's a single person there. It's an empty stage, and they're doing everything. This is fantastic. They start off left, your phone, it's gray, it's boring. It's not a place most people want to be. But what's that off to the right, following the direction that people, I guess, in English, you read left to right. We go from negative on the left, a place I don't want to be, to aspirational on the right. Oh, iPhone. It's pink, it's light, it's high energy, it's kind of joyful. You got a person in the middle, looks like they're having fun, they're physically engaged, they're making that leap, and it's just 3 words. And I'll bet they had a team of probably dozens of marketing professionals sweating every single word in this advertisement. There was probably a version that was 4 words, and they're like, unacceptable. That is way too many words. And they're probably trying to figure out a version of this that would have 1 word at all or no words. This is a really strong advertisement. So I got a thing in chat saying, is this kind of marketing lame, or is it just me? Remember, it doesn't have to appeal to you specifically. It has to appeal to a general audience. Remember we talked about demographics. You pitch to a demographic, not to an individual. Individuals and demographics are separate. And I know he said that we sell to an individual. Now, let me clarify that a little bit. It is, remember that a person has to be interested in the advertisement or what your overall sale that you're making. But of course, you can't literally just sell to people. But always think about this from the perspective of a person who will be viewing this advertisement. That person's not you. Remember, you never sell to yourself. That doesn't make any sense. You're selling to someone who is not you. You've got to make some guesses, some abstractions, all that kind of stuff. All right. And again, remember, even though if it doesn't work for you, this is a advertising campaign for a $1 trillion company that helps move billions of dollars of inventory every year. This is, as I think we got into our first class, Apple itself earns more than the video games industry. I believe that's the stat. Might be a little off on that. But this is the thing. Clean, effective, evocative ads. Moving on. All right. So I want to have a bit of to help give examples of this, bit of an interactive element of the class. So let's pitch a feature. So in chat, let me know if there's a kind of feature that you want to present or something that you'd like to pitch. I'm going to discuss how we pitch it. Or if you're hearing me with the video call, just raise your hand and we'll get into it. I feel like I should be playing some kind of like game show music or something like that right now. Yes, Scott.
Okay, so how about a feature where the player can experience an event through the perspectives of multiple characters?
Oh, that's a good one. Let me think about that one. So I'd probably with aspirational, I'd be thinking along the terms of limitation, as in like, why are we limiting the player to a single viewpoint when this game could be so much more? It's what our competitors are doing. That's not what we're doing. Let me show you how we do that. Boom, 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 boom. Omnivolador.
The game Poltergeist, if you can remember it, back on the GameCube, did a pretty good job of that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Do you remember how they presented the idea?
You were removed from your body as a spirit, and your whole objective was possessing different people, animals, objects as you go throughout the game, and it would change the entire perspective in the game as well.
Oh, neat. So what I'm curious though, do you remember how they pitched it or sold it in the advertising?
Mm, not 100%. It's been a long time. There
Mm,
wasn't a lot of advertising on that game.
yeah, if I remember correctly, I think they sold that one simply on the image of like a ghostly, kind of powerful visage.
Mhm.
In my opinion, not the strongest ad. I think they could have done a better job on that. Harshad,
Um, I'm thinking of two games. One is Driver, I think San Francisco, where you could suddenly switch from one car to another, and then you could like sort of drive different cars. And Watch Dogs Legion, I think, where you could like
oh
sort
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
move around and experience like the world through different people. So
Okay, Harshad, do you remember how they pitched those features?
Legion, they did a full like I think it was at E3 where they showcased the entire like gameplay, and I'm not sure about the advertising, but they just showed the gameplay on how like you would zoom in like through your phone, like you could figure out who's in the vicinity, and
Yeah.
like sort of zoom out and then zoom into like a character and do stuff like that. So
Yeah. Now, actually, jumping into here in Grand Theft Auto 5, we had a very similar feature. Of course, we have our three protagonists, different kind of play styles. That was actually not featured in any of the advertising. I think maybe there's a couple of like gameplay detail videos that had it, but in the actual trailers, they would advertise the characters and the experience, but wouldn't actually get into the features. I think this is actually just a indicator of Rockstar's strong marketing, where they just understood what was more exciting was the idea of the characters. They didn't have to go into the details of swapping between them. They just had to show these characters bouncing off of each other, reacting to the world, explosions, heists, etc., etc. All right. In Legion, the tagline was "Play as anyone." Neat. Let me think about that. You know, just putting on my marketing hat here, play as anyone, I'm not so sure about that. Because is that aspirational? Is that something I'd actually want to be able to do? Have I ever been playing a game that says, man, I wish I could just play as this random NPC around here? I think this might have been a limitation with Legion. Again, personal opinion here. Also, someone's mentioning Messiah from Shiny Entertainment. I'm familiar with it, not super aware of it though. In chat, what are you thinking about Messiah? Also, does anyone have any other features that we want to try pitching or look at the pitch of?
um, oh,
Oh, Harshad.
so I've always had this idea in the back of my head. Could be a film, could be a game. But what if you're through time and your character, everything that your character does in the past influences the future, and you need to flip between future and past to sort of play through the gameplay
Okay.
and work
Okay,
with time basically. So
yeah, let me think about that. I think if I was to pitch that, I would be thinking it from the perspective of um, try to sell why that's interesting to people. So, like, people have got regrets, we've got memories, we have things we wish we could have gone back and changed. So, I think probably something along the lines of something like, we all have regrets. Let's do something about that. Here's the game. Here's the feature. Here's how we're doing it. Get them emotionally. Oh yeah, I do have. Regrets suck. Oh, and then we're pitching them relief. We're pitching them that avoidance. This is how you're gonna fix it. Look at this game. Look at these features, and that's the thing. So that's how I'd approach that one. All right. Let's see. All right. We're gonna carry on. Let me just double check the chat. We have some good points in chat from other. Oh, there we go. Actually, wait. There's a good question in the chat. Maybe a high level epic feature like multiplayer play with friends or arena modes. Okay, this is actually a really good one. So let me think. This is the thing. Pitching online now doesn't really I can't pitch online. Everyone's got online. I can always pitch, well, what if we don't have online? But I think that's problematic because then what are we, you need to get people to care about your online. Everyone's got online. If we're just pitching that we're going to meet standards, then that doesn't put us into a competitive marketplace at all. So for online, let me think. I would try to pitch it as a type of social event or other social gathering. Do we want this to be a party? Do we want this to be me and my friends against the world? Do we want this to be we're meeting new people? Do we want to be test your skills against the deadliest opponents ever? Your fellow gamers. This kind of stuff. It's what is something I can do to take that old stale concept of multiplayer and give it a fresh new lemon lime scent?
Play with
would-
limitations.
Pardon?
Are you playing with 150 people, or can you only play with 2 online?
Oh yeah. And you can wrap it either way. Doing
Yeah.
with 2, it's me versus you. I don't like your chances. Something like that. If it's 100, fuck it, I could actually reuse the exact same thing. You versus 150. They should have brought 250. Something like that. Get them excited, get them involved. If I was pitching it as a feature, though, because those are more marketing advertising, I was pitching as a feature. I would be I would try to get the person thinking about the perspective of the player and how much players are going to enjoy this. What if for 1 versus 1, so 2-player online multiplayer, it would be we're going to streamline multiplayer down just to its essence, and we're going to have nothing but intense player versus player combat. And we're going to give it to them quick, fast, rapid turnaround. Each battle is going to be epic and unique. Something like that. These are, again, technically, these are kind of vague, and there's a lot of different ways you can kind of present these, but it gets people excited and engaged and thinking about it. If I was pitching 1 versus 150, I think that's a tough one because, man, you're kind of just doing battle royale at that point. But I think,
Doesn't have to be 1 versus 150.
No, but let's stick with the challenge. Let's stick with the challenge. I don't want to give myself an easy out on this one. So if I was to do 1 versus 150, let me think about this. I wouldn't want to just make it battle royale because there's too many of those. So how can I make this stand out? I would try to be pitching this from the position of the player's perspective and what they do. Try to get the developer or publisher thinking about themselves as the player. I would probably approach this from the thing of use your wits to survive against an onslaught. Trying to pull it a bit more to a strategic kind of position to try to distance it from battle royale. I'm thinking about this. This is no longer about just reflexes. We're pulling into a more strategic mindset. Now, again, there's a lot of play in the design space there, but I wouldn't want to be pitching this in a way so that we could be easily compared to someone else, and we're showing this as a fresh take on an existing feature. Harshad, you got your hand up.
I have a last minute idea. I was thinking about variable difficulty levels because sometimes, and it reminds me of me when I'm playing with my wife because she's completely new to gaming. So you have someone who's like an experienced gamer and you have someone who's a beginner, and you can sort of vary the difficulty levels or have 2 different characters. One is an easy character to play and one is like a more difficult character to play. So it sort of caters to maybe 2 at the same time. One who just wants to have a casual kind of go at a game and the other one is more experienced. So
variable difficulty levels. I would always argue that that's a pretty easy, straightforward one. That would be Something about like inclusivity and like pulling in additional players. Something like, not just the pros, but the friends and the friends of their friends. Something like that.
Like everyone can have a good time.
Finally, our most passionate fans can share the experience they love in a way that their friends, their family will also love, because we're going to meet them where they are with scalable difficulty. Feature. Then tie it on the end with a little bit of avoidance of like, man, do we want to miss out on this market? Et cetera, et cetera. All right, we're going to carry on. So, I want to jump into now super important thing of what'll kill a sale. You'd be amazed at the number of people that'll take a perfectly set up sale and then just shoot it right in the head. Just, I guess they're trying to live life on hard mode unnecessarily. But I'm going to jump into a couple things to really be careful about avoiding. And like it's astonishing the number of people that make these mistakes. And like I see large companies make these mistakes as well. Confusion. If I'm trying to pitch someone something and they're confused about what exactly it is I'm trying to sell, that is a huge problem. People will not make a purchase. They will not sign you on as an employee. They will not approve a feature. They will not buy a game if they're confused about what it is they're actually getting. Scott, you got your hand up.
Yes. So back to avoidance.
Yep.
Is FOMO a valid tactic to employ, like general?
It can. Yeah, actually, no. It totally is a valid tactic. Yeah, FOMO works. I'd be careful about using that. And it's like any of these things, they're all tools in like your sales tool belt. They have to be used properly. So it's like even in like a interview, it is, if I've got multiple people interested in me during an interview process, I will let them know someone else is interested, you might miss out on me, and just give them a little bit of FOMO there. Wouldn't lean into it too heavily, but it's certainly there. It's absolutely a valid tool.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right. So confusion like this, a lot of people think, oh man, if we give people everything, surely they will be super happy. And like, well, no, a lot of times you run into is a problem. They go in, they don't know how to find what they're looking for. They get confused. They don't know where anything is, and eventually they just leave. Now, a lot of companies, like Amazon's a really good example of this. They do a huge amount of effort goes to content curation. So you go on their landing page, they're just showing you a small selection of items that they are guessing you're going to like, because they don't want to show you a giant page with, here, choose from 196 million items, or they probably have over 1 billion items on Amazon at this point. You would be so confused, you have no idea where to start. And this is also a thing with other people pitch, like, this is the, going back to that Watch Dogs pitch of like, play as anyone. I'm not sure what that means as a player. That's a tough one. It's like, I'm not, okay, so I've never been playing Master Chief and also wanted to play not Master Chief. It's like, it's formless. Again, my personal opinion. So confusion is a big killer for sales. You want it to be clear. This is also why you want to have as little information as possible. Mystery and confusion are not the same thing. Ambiguity and confusion are not the same thing. In that iPhone ad, Apple knows that you know what an iPhone is, so they don't have to explain it. Just to remind you of the name. Remember, they didn't even show the product in the ad. They didn't have to. People know what an iPhone is. They just need to get emotionally engaged and curious about it, so they're going to find out more. If no one knew what an iPhone was, that ad would be confusing. It wouldn't work. They would have to show you iPhone, and they probably have to put in a very careful number of features there to help justify it. So, topic confusion. Other thing that kills sales is frustration. If things are too difficult or too frustrating, people will eventually just leave and will not complete a sale. And this works, this is for interviews, features, all that kind of stuff. If I've got the best feature in the world, but we've had to repeat the same presentation 5 times and executives are getting tired and they're not seeing the changes they want in the presentation, they will kill the project just because of problems because they found the presentation frustrating. It can be completely divorced from the development of the project, of the feature. But just because this became frustrating for them, they will kill the feature. It's human nature. It's just how things work. So like, whenever you're trying to pitch something or present something to someone, work overtime to resolve any confusion and any frustration. It's as clear as motherfucking possible. It's as easy to engage with as motherfucking possible. All right, so I want to give you a couple examples here. So, going back to our example, the inventory system of Resident Evil 4. So, let me show you how to fuck up this pitch. So, we're working on Resident Evil 4. It is cutting edge. It is action. It is cinematic. We are reinventing the survival horror genre with epic boss battles, intense combat, high stakes, Hollywood-style production. But let me tell you something. Inventory Tetris. You're probably really fucking confused right now and being like, so what is inventory Tetris? Like, why do I care? You know, it's accurate to what this thing is. But no one cares. No one's thinking Resident Evil 4, man, I wish I could organize my inventory better. Like, it's something they want, but that was the earlier pitch of like, make the inventory as much fun as the game, or almost as much fun as the gameplay itself. I want to leave myself a little room to negotiate there. If I am pitching this just as inventory Tetris, it's got no context, it's confusing, it will not land. So, give it another example. Let's see if this works. So I'm going to go and pitch this. So what I want to give you guys, can anyone hear me? Can you hear me? My clever example doesn't work. But here, let me just do this. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me? Oh, of course, the call you guys can hear me. But here, barely hear me, and it's the exact same pitch of, Didn't matter what I said then, because it would have been too frustrating to hear me. You would have been like, this is kind of bullshit and I'm irritated now. I just don't like this feature anymore. If you're applying for a job, for example, if you make getting in touch with you frustrating and overly fiddly, you will lose the job. Remember, when you're applying for a job, you are selling yourself. Sales is intrinsically linked to just about everything you're going to do in your career. So if you make getting in touch with you or your communication or your clarity confusing or frustrating, the employer will go and hire someone else. So be very careful about maintaining frustration. And it can't even be something as simple as a frustrating microphone volume that is just... All right. Oh, wait. Where's my mouse cursor gone? There we go. All right. So I want to jump into one other thing. So I was putting this together, thought, man, people are probably going to think sales and think, Steam sales. I want to jump into those because those are a really interesting element in sales as well. So we all love Steam sales. They're great, but Steam sales have a dark side. Ooh. And same with Epic sales. Sales in general. So, sales are useful for motivating customers. We all know if you put something on sales, you get a spike in the number of units sold. But there's a big problem. You're devaluing your product. You are letting the customers know not to respect your price point or to value your price point. This can lead to effectively a customer base that will, instead of buying the game at the price you offer it, they're waiting for the sale, which causes all sorts of weird price inflation. It is like, I know some people are like, well, we release our game at $20 so we can put it on sale for 10. And like, I get the strategy, but that's problematic because now your customers will not take your price point at its word, and that price point is so important to defend, because then you get into a habit of like, oh well, we take it down to 10, take it down to 8, take it down to 5, and all this time you are digging out the dirt beneath you for actually, establishing a successful, profitable business. You have to be able to defend your price point. You can wiggle it a bit, but be very careful you're not actively devaluing your product. I know a couple very large publishers who found themselves this problem right now, where they will release a game and everyone's reaction is, yeah, I'll wait a month for that to go on sale at half price. And no one buys it. So then you got to slash it down to half price. And, it just causes this hugely problematic relationship. Another thing is also another problem. Scott will get you in just a second. But another problem is that this results in what I call a non-engaged purchase. The entire purpose of making things is so people use them. I don't want to be selling someone something they're not using. It's just not useful. Perhaps it moves the exchange of capital along, but it's a short-term solution. I want someone, like, I would rather have them charge them a little more for something they're going to love than reduce the price and have them buy it and not use it. Like, I think if someone has bought my game on sale and they're not playing it, I find that a huge loss. So I'm like, man, I want them playing it. I want them loving it. I want them providing feedback. I want them recommending it to their friends. Or perhaps they play it and they don't like it. That's fine too. Find out what they don't like, fix it, iterate on it, let them know that you fixed it, improve your next game. You're going to get a reputation as a developer that listens. There's so many problematic games that launched, but through just hard work on the developer side, they turned around the narrative and won themselves a legion of dedicated fans. Scott.
Yeah, so I wonder if there's a solution that to these sales that would be kind of mirrored in like the fractional trend right now. In professional services, there's a concept of fractional. It's a fancy way of saying part-time, right? So you would get the expertise of a CTO or a chief marketing officer, chief of staff, or whatever, at a lower price point, because you're paying less time, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
you keep your rate at $250 an hour or $120 an hour or whatever, but you're not getting that. They're not paying 40 hours a week. They're maybe paying 5 or 10 hours a week, so that lowers the price, right? So
yes.
in terms of gaming, I wonder how we could, maybe cut some features to lower it at a proportional price, and then you pay more for getting additional full version.
Absolutely. That's a very valid approach as well. There's a project I'm working on right now, and that's actually how we're solving sales. Is we are finding a way to sell a component of the game in a way that does not feel like overly negative, or that the customer's getting shortchanged. They pay a little, like if they're getting a quarter of the game for about 20% of the price. So actually, no, about 30% of the price. So a little tiny bit of a premium on there, not so much to be really irritating, but it allows it to be an easier access point, and it advertises them on the full experience. But yeah, this is actually a really common strategy. One of my favorite examples of this is great unmade film was Jodorowsky's Dune. This is back in the 70s, and they're going to have Salvador Dali, the famous impressionist artist, as the emperor of the universe. And to get Salvador Dali to sign on, they were going to offer him, I think it was like a rate of, I think it was like $250,000 an hour, which would have made him by far the most highly paid actor in the world. But they were only going to give him 2 hours of of work. And they just scheduled it so that he could get through all of his scenes in 2 hours, and then they're going to be done, and that was it. And Salvador Dali loved it. Like he could do math. He knows that he's not getting a ton of money, or he's getting like a decent amount of money out of this, a lot, but like not as much as a super highly paid actor is. But he was able to refer to himself as the $250,000 an hour actor, you know. And like this is like I will use this when I'm negotiating sometimes, where if I'm dealing with like working with an indie that just can't afford the full Matt Friedman rate, I'll be like, all right, tell you what, let's figure out something else. Like, can you give me flexibility in the schedule? I generally have like, okay, can't hit the price point, that's fine. What can we do with flexibility? And I generally have like what I call like a no bullshit clause, and it's just like, man, if you can minimize the amount of time that we're arguing about design fundamentals, and you can guarantee me that you've taken your ego off the table, that is worth a huge amount to me, because I do not want to be working, all through the week on a design problem and then have to be constantly fighting you on it because, it isn't the exact thing that you specifically wanted. It's like, you hired me on as a professional. Please trust my skills as a professional. I'm not saying everything's going to be perfect. I'm just saying, let's prove it against a customer, not your personal opinions. If you can give me that, that's very appealing to me. All right. So wrap this up. Sales are a tool, not a solution. Give examples. Some people got in the chat here is protect your price point. This is what Nintendo and Apple do, and they are very successful. This is something a lot of successful companies do, is they are very careful about how they discount their products. And the hard part of this is, like, if you're defending your price point, you have to be worth your price point. You cannot be selling a $20 good for $60. People will not buy it. If it's $60, make it worth $60. But once it's worth $60, don't suddenly make it $20. It's $60. That's the price. That's it. Stand by that. Take pride in it. Actually, I'm going to give you a quick example of this. I know some companies that are so slavish to this, they would rather destroy inventory rather than ever put it on sale. Now, this is generally what luxury brands will do, but if they've got, for example, and of course I know this is just grabbing this as an example out of the air, a company like Tag Heuer, if they have unsold watches, they won't put them on sale. They would rather break them down for spare parts or destroy them rather than have them go on sale, because they know that then they've compromised their price point, and then that will weaken their ability to negotiate as a luxury brand going forward. So be very careful about your price point, and that includes, yourself as an employee. It's the thing. So know what you're worth and be willing to stand behind that. At the same time, I would also say always be willing to help people out. I do a lot of free work. Like, heck, this entire design program, this 2.5 months, there's no cost to people. I've actually got like server hosting costs and all that stuff. This costs me money, but I'm like, you know what? I really love helping people start their careers. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. It's just, I'm the best to describe this. It is very important to be known as a viable solution to problems. That then allows you to, negotiate your position within a market much more. And I'm like helping you guys out. I've got a charity I run. I got a lot of people give advice and guidance to and mentoring to, and like all that stuff. It's just, for me, it's important. Like, what I'm doing is I'm protecting Matt's, not protecting my price point, but my reputation as providing good design solutions. If you want great design solutions, this is where you fucking go, man. Right here. All right. El Nivelador. What questions do we have?
We have a few. Starting from number 1. When you pitch a game, what are the best ways to test if your pitch works?
Oh, I'd present it to team members first. I'd have them take a look over it, get their thoughts on it, and also, even actually run it by perhaps not the person you're pitching to, but someone who knows them. Like if I'm pitching to an executive, I would reach out to the executive producer who's going to be in the room as well. So like executive producer isn't always technically an executive role. Pitch to the person who runs the company. Executive producers will be in the room. I would ask the executive producers to give me their feedback on the pitch because they also want to have pitches work. They do not want to be in the room for an unsuccessful pitch because that's just negative all around. They want to be in a room and have a pitch go through. People generally want other people on their team to succeed. If you're on a team that doesn't want people on the team to succeed, you're on a toxic fucking team, and I'd recommend getting out of there real quickly. But that also doesn't mean that you also don't want leadership that's saying yes to everything. There's a difference between those two things. But generally, I found if I've got a pitch and I'm not sure about it, I will pull other people in to look at the pitch. I present it to them, get their feedback.
Awesome.
All right.
Next question from Oromeno is asking for more evidence for aspiration.
More evidence for aspiration. Jesus. I mean, not to be flippant, but like, man, it's used in just about every single effective advertising campaign. Coca-Cola does not sell bottled sugar water. They sell good times with your friends because bottled sugar water is not aspirational. Good times with your friends are. I want to be thinking about myself, having fun with my friends on the beach, playing volleyball or whatever people in Coca-Cola advertisements do. And they're just like, hey, doesn't that look great? Oh, by the way, Coca-Cola, now this fun time with your friends and Coca-Cola is linked in your mind. Beer companies do the same kind of thing. Clothing companies are aspirational. Car companies are aspirational. Jewelry companies are aspirational. iPhones are aspirational. They're selling this as defining yourself as a creative professional. It is not used super often in games, and I think that is a thing the games industry could certainly learn from. But
Some games,
yeah,
games like Destiny become legend.
Yes, absolutely, right. Nail on the head there, El Nivelador. Thank you so much. All right, Scott.
Yeah, so I wonder if there's something to be said, kind of going back to the sales. Is there something to be said for episodic games? I've heard that that episodic games don't really work. You buy one game, and the expectation that your audience might, buy the next episode and so forth. Is not a great model, but that could be a way of kind of giving you the intro to get people interested in it. And so, what are your thoughts on that?
Episodic games have got a fundamental market problem, and that is whatever you sell in the first episode, it will only go down from there.
Okay.
It's like the exact same problem in the comics industry. If I sell 1 million units of my first comic, I'm selling 900,000 the next, 800,000 the one after that, 700,000 the one after that. This is I'm really interested in the whole the manga industry because they've got a really interesting pipeline where they will release the manga, which is a low-cost comic that advertises the anime. The anime gets people interested in merchandise. Merchandise reintroduces people to the manga, which gets them into the anime, gets them into merchandise. They've got a nice cycle going there. It's a really smart ecosystem. And they'll pull in movies and that kind of stuff as well to kind of spur it on. Problem with episodic games is that you leave yourself few chances to bring on new audience members. And this was actually, I think, a problem that Destiny got into, is that once they established their hardcore players, your delta between your new and your hardcore just kept getting wider and wider, and you were effectively had two very distinct customer groups you now had to provide content to. I wanted to bring in new players, but the hardcore players also wanted new content as well. And this becomes a very, very difficult bridge to gap. Was it Dungeons and Dragons has got a similar issue where it's the experienced players want stuff for experienced players, but Dungeons and Dragons will only live if it brings on new players. Yeah. So just again, this thing is especially Destiny's struggling since they finished the main story. Destiny's a really interesting example. I think it's a wonderful game, and they figured out games as a service, and they got there first, and they really killed it. But then I think they're running into some big problems regarding how to scale that overall system. It's a real challenge. But yeah, episodic games, I'd be concerned about that for that exact market reason. Let me think. I mean, I if I was to do episodic, I would do very short engagements, and I do several short engagements. Harshad.
I'm thinking of DCU Online
Yes.
because they have like the free version. You're very limited with the free version, but you can still play the content. And then you buy comics, you buy like the episodes if you want to. But then that gets pricey over time because there is a monthly subscription. I don't know if there's like a separate cost for. And then you're buying the equivalent of like a AAA game almost like every couple of months. And
Oh,
I don't know
wow.
how. Yeah, I know how that model works. And I remember playing it back in the day. It's really good gameplay, but then gameplay is nothing when there's nothing to go towards to with that gameplay. So I was thinking about that as well.
Yeah, it's there's all sorts of buying patterns you can enable at like the free to play, well, a variety of price points, but free to play is really interesting. But like there's one of the things I'm always worried about in any kind of like market approach is, are we viewing the customer as a piggy bank that we just keep pulling money out of? If we are, that's a bad fucking position to be in. Because eventually you will lose trust and it will not come back. And you will train your development team to not respect the customer. And that just, you've now filled your talent pool with people who don't care about the customer. The customer will realize that they will play someone else's game. Also, there's a one point in the chat that someone mentioned, merch is the real moneymaker. Oh my God, yes. If you look at the most profitable IPs in the world, they're all effectively merchandise machines. Like I think the I did a read through of like I think it's the top 100 most profitable IPs. Wikipedia keeps a list of this. I think only 10 of them didn't have a substantial merchandise element to them. And one of the interesting things, oh yeah, Pokemon's number one. Yeah, and that's mostly merch. Like Pokemon is just a fucking merchandise machine. It's insane. But an interesting thing where I think Nintendo's being super fucking smart because they really know their stuff, is they are pivoting themselves away from like they started as a toy company to a games company. Now they're becoming an IP company, which is really smart. They can still make toys, they can still make games, but they're doing IPs, which means theme parks, movies, merchandise. I wish I owned some Nintendo stock. That'd be so nice. But yeah, I think they're being really smart about this. This is actually like one of the projects I'm working on right now. Like we are having a lot of discussions about our merch strategy. It's like instead of doing DLC and microtransactions, I would rather have something that people love and then they want to buy a t-shirt, buy a coffee cup, etc., and figure out how to get that to work, because that provides so much elasticity in your market approach. And also like people really like merch. Like if it's good, high quality merch and they're just buying a few pieces, you can easily double or triple your overall profitability, and you're selling things that people really love. And it's tough to make good merch, but once it's done, it's done. It can become an evergreen item. You know, how many fucking t-shirts does like Iron Maiden sell based on the design of I think it's Eddie is a character. Eddie and the Trooper, the two characters there. It's great. All right. Moving on. So we're gonna wrap things up. So takeaways. First one is you sell to a person. Always remember that. You're not selling to an algorithm. For God's sakes, don't sell to algorithms. Algorithms suck. If I hear someone's sales strategy and it's based on gaming and algorithm, I would be like, you don't have a strategy. Figure it, go home and come up with a new one. Leveraging the Steam sale is not how you're going to make your game stand out, because everyone's leveraging the Steam sale. That isn't some unique fucking brainstorm you just came up with. Everyone does that. What's the person you're selling to? How are you selling to that person? That's what I want to know. Sales are driven by emotion. As much as we like to think we are rational, we are not. We're driven by emotion. This class would be a lot less effective and a lot less fun if I was just giving you constant stats and graphs and evidence. And it would probably be a lot less educational as well. Emotion, like our brain is very evolved and very effective. It listens hugely to its emotional system. This is even the thing. Even like talk to look at interviews of like Warren Buffett, and he will absolutely emphasize the importance of listening to your gut, and that is a huge emotional response. Your gut is closely integrated with your emotional system. You only ever sell aspiration or avoidance. Those are the two things you got to sell people. Man, you're sure going to like this. Man, you sure want to avoid this other thing. If you're selling them anything else, you're doing your job wrong. That's what you're pitching them. Doesn't matter if it's an inventory system, a targeting system, multiplayer, store, a new level. It is your aspiration and avoidance. Lead with aspiration, back it up with avoidance. And confusion and frustration kills sales. If people are not sure what the fuck you're trying to sell them, then they aren't going to buy. If it's overwhelming with choice, they aren't going to buy. If there's a reason why, like at a buffet, they don't sell you a list of all the items. They sell you the buffet. They sell you the experience of choice. A poor buffet would list out all the items. If I was selling a buffet, I would be like, man, it's the culture and the excitement of India, and you can access it with the exact food you love. Something like that, you know? I would not be saying tikka masala, oh my God, butter chicken, roti. I wouldn't like that. They'd be like, I don't get it. It's too much, you know? God, I'm hungry now. Still trying to find a good samosa place in Edmonton. I know some really good ones in Toronto and Vancouver. Edmonton has still eluded me. All right. Confusion and frustration kills sales. So another thing, frustration. If you are applying for a job and you're going through an interview process, remember, you're pitching yourself. You're selling yourself. If you make contact with you frustrating, then that is a problem. Remember, sales are a tool, not a solution. Be very careful about how you apply them. This deals with the price point of your game, but also the price point of yourself. To find out what you're worth, justify that worth, defend that worth. All right. So we're going to get into this week's homework. So this week, what I want you to do, new column in your design workbook. I want you to sell yourself. I want you to sell a feature from your game. Then I want you to sell your game. So 3 entries there. Format is 1 sentence for emotion, then another sentence for logic. Arshad, you are a dynamic, exciting, driven game development professional because, you know. So I want to see you guys pitching yourself, pitch a feature from your game, then pitch the game itself. This is you applying for a job. It's you working at a company, and it's ultimately how you can get people excited about selling your game. Have I tried biryani? Yes, I have tried biryani. It's super tasty, and now I'm even hungrier than before. God damn it. I do have coffee left. It's not food, but you know. It's something. All right. So I want to give you guys a quick reminder. We got the Design Professional Program. That will enable you to start your design career. Begins February 2025. It's a 4-month program. We're going to get you, you're going to design a game, make a game, release a game. It's going to be on Steam. You're going to be featured in Steam at Gamescom Canada. Afterwards, we're going to be introduced to employers. Show them your game. Tuition, $15,000 Canadian or $11,000 USD. In 6 months, that would be the end of the program. Where do you want your life to be? If you want to find out more, there's the email you can contact me at. Scott, you got your hand up.
Yeah, is there financing or payment plans available too, or is it all upfront?
We do have, we absolutely have payment plans available. Thank you very much. So we can do this monthly. For financing, a lot of our grants have already been snatched up, but if the tuition is going to be a significant hindrance, please reach out. I'll see if there's anything we can do to help out with that. But if you're curious, please reach out. Email's right there. Oh, I got invitations to come to India. Dude, you have no idea how badly I want to come to India. Like shit, I would love to come to India, not just for the food. Dude, to visit the country that made the film RRR, that is a great time. Has anyone not seen RRR? God damn it, watch RRR. Dude throws a fucking tiger at another human being. It's amazing. All right. Any questions?
I have a few left, but we'll get to Harshad first.
El Nivelador, what do we got?
Harshad.
Okay.
Can go first.
Harshad, Harshad, I
We
like
can
your
ask the-
smile. Yeah, go for it.
So, I have two actually. First is, where does curiosity fit in with aspiration and avoidance? Because curiosity sometimes is like sort of skirting the two, maybe. Like you want to avoid something, but that how does that play into the whole these two factors? So
your curiosity still has to be driven by, has to be inspired by an emotional engagement.
Right.
No
Okay.
one gets curious about a nondescript gray box get cement. It's like, well, people notice with that Cyberpunk ad. It's bright and it's yellow. It stands out. Yellow is an evocative color. The Apple iPhone ad, pink against gray.
Right. Yeah. And the second one is more on exclusives, because Epic Games came in and sort of brought in this exclusive Epic Store sort of stuff, and sort of diminished the market for certain games, like made it you can only buy it here. So that affects the games on some level, right? Because there's also the trust factor, and then they just give away games every week for free. I do get them, but I can probably think of 2 games that I've played on the Epic Games Store, and if I liked it there, I buy it on Steam. So
yeah. That's amazing. That is amazing. Yeah, I have stopped getting free games off of Epic because I realized I was not playing them, and I was just tired of being on that little hamster wheel. I've actually started to disengage from a lot of subscription services, because I've started to realize I just was not enjoying the product they were giving me. I think it's because it was like, I was surrounded by so much amazing Indian food, it all just became very generic. I just want someone to hand me a bag with a really tasty samosa in it. That is the best thing ever. And I would happily pay premium samosa prices for that. But for exclusives, I think the market is quickly realizing that exclusives have a limited utility. I mean, Nintendo has been phenomenal at this and about, really fostering their market. But I think at a certain point, Nintendo is going to start to realize that they can only sell so many consoles, and it's far more profitable for them to sell games than to sell consoles. So I think they're going to start having discussions about this. We've seen Microsoft has already pretty much given up on exclusives. Sony, they're starting to waver. Smartphones, I don't think do exclusives at all. Aside from maybe Apple's got some bespoke things, and Google, I think, barely has any. At the end of the day, you want to get as many people using the thing as possible. Now, on the other side of that, there's I'm trying to think here. So I've been looking a lot into sales and marketing. One of the reasons we have this talk, because like, man, if I get the best game out there and no one wants to buy it, what have I really done? So in some of my clients I work with, we have started discussing what the position in the market is. And like one of them, it's like, well, we want to have ourselves as being an exclusive artisanal brand. And it's like, well, you're a digital good, so that's kind of hard to limit that. It's not like you're a fancy pair of shoes where only 1,000 were made. But it's like, we want to make this feel exclusive. And we're looking at branding around that. So it feels like, you get this, and like it is something bespoke. It is like it's artisanal, and that sense of exclusivity. Now, a really interesting case of this, and this is, I think, to show you how effective this marketing tactic is. I might be asking I'm definitely asking the wrong group about this. Is anyone familiar with Dior handbags? Anybody? Anyone in chat know about Dior handbags? Scott, do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to New York and going into Goldman Sachs or whatever that high-end store is.
Fancy motherfucker right there, New York at
Well,
Goldman Sachs.
we walked in there. We walked in there. There's no price.
You're muted. The Dior agent's muted his microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So we walked into Goldman Sachs. And this is the type of place where there's no prices on anything, and the vibe is if you have to ask how much something is, you can't afford it.
Yeah. Now, if I'm correct, now I might be getting this wrong, but if I'm correct, a Dior
Or Saks Fifth Avenue.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. But like a Dior handbag, they won't even have them on the shelf. You are told if you can buy a Dior handbag. You're not even allowed to ask. People, you have to shop at the Dior store for a certain amount of time, spend a certain amount of money. You got to be someone they like, and then someone will reach out to you and says, okay, you can buy a handbag for $10,000. It is wildly effective. I am not a Dior handbag customer. I want to make that clear. But shit, there are people out there like that. That is the most insane level of exclusivity. Ferrari does the same thing. In order to buy a red Ferrari, you have to buy lots of Ferraris in underwhelming colors. In particular, you have to buy the Ferraris they can't sell. So that's one of the craziest things. If in order to buy a Ferrari, you have to register and apply to buy a Ferrari, and then you have to start off to prove yourself as a Ferrari customer by buying their overstock. And they sell out of everything, it's insane. Now, I wouldn't advocate for this market approach in digital goods, but like you got to be aware of like the crazy strategies people can put out there. Like at the end of the day, we're engaging in capital markets. We've got to be aware of how these things operate. And it's really interesting to see some of the crazy strategies people can put out there. All right. El Nivlador, we had some questions.
We do. What level of programming is required for a game designer?
For a game designer, I would say fundamental programming. And I think that programming gets a bad rap. It is far easier than it appears. It is like it's like anything. It can get very complex, but really it's actually quite simple. It's quite simple. It's quite straightforward. You need to understand binary mathematics, which is very simple. That's just on and off. Something's on, something's off. Is it on or is it off? That's all that binary mathematics is. And you need to understand basic kind of logic. Generally, for gameplay, you want to be able to describe your design of if this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. You can describe your design like that, then that becomes something that's much easier to implement, as opposed to thinking about your design concepts in a level that is too high level and abstract. Now, you of course want to start high level, but as you get down to the specific nuts and bolts of your design, you got to be able to think about it in programmer terms, which is really just if this, then that. If this, then that. You're good. All right.
Yeah. And I just want to mention that Unreal Engine Unreal Engine blueprints are pretty accessible too,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
things out visually, so then you don't need to worry about typing stuff and typos and whatever. So yeah, if
Yeah,
anyone
yeah.
needs help with that, I'd be happy to hop on a call.
Dude, that's fucking awesome.
Yep.
Good guy,
Awesome.
Scott, right there.
Thank you,
All right.
Scott.
Anytime. Happy
Next
to help.
question. How would you pitch yourself as a jack of all trades without adding confusion?
Oh, let me think. I
was wondering about this as well as a
yeah, yeah.
generalist. So
Excellent question. So, unless they're specifically asking as a generalist, and actually, I even got like approached about a job opening where they did specifically ask for a generalist. I'm like, wow, that's rare. Usually, you're not looking for a generalist. But what I would say is, if they're asking for a level designer, say yes, I can level design. Also, I'm going to know how to talk to animation. I'll know how to talk to code. I'll know how to talk to UI because I know all these things. But I'm a level designer. If they want a UI designer, I'm now a UI designer. If they want a systems designer, I'm now a systems designer. You pitch yourself as the solution to their problem. And then the generalist is just saying, and I am robust to solve all these other problems that could happen as well. It's you're pitching yourself as the solution to future problems. You're removing that. You're selling them on avoidance. You're going to avoid all these future problems. Picture if you hired a designer that didn't know all this stuff and a random problem happened. You'd be kind of screwed. All right. Anything
100%.
else?
Yes. Should you price your game based on your desired sale price?
Oh, wait. Okay, so I'm gonna have to take a couple of guesses here. So, I would not. So, if it's desired sale price, as in the game is on sale, and I've reduced the price to something, I would not base it on that because then, said earlier, you're devaluing your game and you're training your customers to not respect your set price point. Now, if you're talking about sale price as the actual full price of the game, it is you need like your price point is the most critical, or actually I would say it's the most critical design decision you have, because if you get this wrong, you do not sell anything, or you're missing a third of your potential revenue, and that will compromise your ability to make future titles. So with your price point, you have to figure out what is a reasonable price point for your game. I would then up it a little bit and justify that increase. I would always it is much more beneficial to try to increase your price and justify that than it is to lower your price and kind of devalue yourself in the market. And it's really easy to want to lower that price. That's what a lot of people do. It is much harder to justify a strong price point, but it's a much better position to be in. All right. Anything else?
Yes. How avoidance is practically used for selling and gaming? Asking for a
Oh.
real game example.
Oh God, that's a tough one. I've never seen. Let me think. I can't think of, like, for gaming, I can't think of any direct examples. However, that doesn't mean it doesn't have application. There's this one of the biggest weaknesses of the games industry is it is incredibly insulated. It resists learning lessons from other markets, genres, mediums. It's a big limiting factor. It's like, man, if all these other trillion-dollar companies are using this approach, there's probably something to it. Be aware of it. You don't necessarily have to be using that. The thing with a game is, because I want people spending time with a game, it's something they regularly interact with, you will generally want to lead with, oh my God, aspiration. I don't want to be pitching them a bad time and say, man, spend time with the bad time. Like, I don't want them associating the game with negative thoughts. You can use it as a bit of a spin. It's like, are you the kind of person who defends the universe, or are you one of those other guys? You know, you're like, I don't want to be one of those other guys. I want to be someone who defends the universe. You know, that one of those other guys, that's an avoidance thing. You know, I want to be special. I want to defend the universe or what have you. So that's how I'd approach that
100%.
overall. I wouldn't lead with, you know, avoid a boring life. It's like that's kind of insulting, and now I've just kind of depressed my customer. We're not selling insurance. This works for a strong avoidance leading strategy, works for products that the customers do not want to be regularly interacting with. You've sold them a solution to a potential future problem. You do not want to have that problem happen. This is a lot of these products like insurance. They're things you don't want to be interacting with. Games are the opposite, so games should be aspirational.
Awesome.
All right.
Last question I have from chat is, how does a game you finance from Kickstarter or Patreon differ from the traditional way of producing a game from a sales perspective?
Oh, not that much actually. I think Patreon, you've got to sell the audience or the customer's confidence in your ability to complete the game. But the fundamentals are very similar. You're still pitching them aspiration and avoidance. Like, we are going to do all of this so the game will be of high quality and it will ship on time. You're avoiding a late ship game. You're avoiding a poor quality game. But again, the thing as well is, remember that first slide we talked about, you're selling to individuals? The volume on that's turned way up when you're doing Patreon and Kickstarter. You are very directly selling to individuals there. Like, you've got to, do the hustle for every single one of those units sold. The advice I'd heard for an effective Kickstarter campaign is you start advertising your campaign and rallying support 4 to 5 months before the campaign actually starts. All right.
That's all I have.
Okay. And Scott.
Yeah. So regarding the assignment for selling yourself, selling your feature, selling your game, just I guess more just the mechanics of it. When you're selling yourself, can we almost, because you want to do the aspiration, but you also want to do the the avoidance, right? So is it recommended to just do a sentence for for the aspiration and then another sentence for avoidance, or try and wrap them in such a way it's not a run-on sentence?
That's a good point. So the thing is, if I'm
Yeah. So I mean, the example that I'm trying to put in is, would you prefer to have a game designer who can prototype a game from concept to completion and collaborate with a multidisciplinary team, or someone who develops a concept in isolation and hands it off for others to solve? Right. So I'm trying to.
That's actually an excellent point, Scott. You have an excellent point here, and this is. So all of these different sales channels, yourself, a feature, and the end product, they all have slightly different strategies. I want you guys to be exploring that. Now, if I'm selling myself, I would downplay avoidance, but still have it there, as in I can effectively collaborate with someone. Because then they're thinking, oh, that's good. What if they couldn't? I can do this. I can do that. Because then they're thinking, oh, those are solutions to problems I didn't even realize I was going to have. Man, that's a relief, because that's taking all these unknowns off the table for me now. The thing is that you've got to be like, any skill that is valuable is complex and difficult to master. And sales is that. Like, sales is very, very hard to do. It is a discipline into itself, but it's also something I need all you guys to be aware of, because that's so critical to your success going forward. So within that, there isn't a cut and dry formula or even a specific approach to this. when I've had successful sales pitches, I've usually broken away from established formula and directly countered it in some ways. And that's one of those, I couldn't tell you exactly what to do, but like these are what I find to be best practices. If I'm pitching myself, I do not want to use overly negative language because I do not want that stuff sticking to me. I don't want them thinking, oh, terrors and nightmares and problems, because they will associate Matt Friedman with that then. I want them to associate me with solutions to problems they possibly didn't even realize they had. That's an element of avoidance. Oh shit, what if this happened? Oh, don't worry, I got that solved. Scott, you got that solved because you got all these awesome skills. You know, that's how I'd adjust that. Like I'd say, 80% positive, 20% negative. The negative's still there, but I'd be very low key with that.
Okay.
Features, you can be a little more aggressive on the negative because you could be pitching a feature directly to solve a problem. On the customer facing side of things, I would still lean strongly into the positive. Or sorry, end user side of things, because like you've effectively a hiring manager, a customer, effectively an executive. Okay.
Awesome. And then one last question from chat.
Yep.
4 to 5 months before it even starts. Sounds difficult to design for a Kickstarter campaign. Do you have any examples?
Oh, you know what? This is actually an excellent question, chat. I do not have a specific example of that. That was the advice given to me from executives at Kickstarter when I was talking to them at the conference 2 weeks ago. Got a chance to talk with them about how to run a Kickstarter campaign, and then I also talked with the guy who had run what is it? Oh my god, I kind of have the worst brain fart here. Darkest Dungeon. So I had a chat with one of the lead designer for Darkest Dungeon, and he had mirrored that sentiment as well, and they had a very successful Kickstarter. You got to start early with this stuff. Yeah, it's really hard. Like that's the thing. You forget, success takes hard work. That's the biggest thing. And like, yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but man, you got to get it done.
And just to add to that, I think there's also a lot of collateral that needs to be built for Kickstarter. Like you need to start out of the gate when your campaign starts with a good video, a strong video, and
Yep.
And high fidelity things, right? It can't just be, here's my game, please support it, right? You need to really come out of the gate. So there's a lot of stuff you need to prep.
Now, one of the things that's a good cheat is that fidelity doesn't move the marker as much as you might think it does. A hilarious thing is like, man, there's so many advertisements that come out now that is someone sitting in their car with like a smartphone mic. Like it's just it's about getting that engagement. I don't want to have shitty audio, but it can be kind of rough and charming. That's just kind of what the market's expecting right now. I would, if I was doing that video, I would more be trying to get people. Is it getting people excited and emotionally engaged in the product? If it is, yes, then great. It doesn't matter if like the lighting wasn't exactly, if it didn't look like a Hollywood production. If it's getting the job done, if it's getting people excited, that is all you need to do. And honestly, the simplest way you can do that, you are winning then. This is a bit of an aside, but like anyone who's a fan of like Chinese martial arts films, the reason why that became a style was because they couldn't afford to compete with Hollywood on set pieces and massive costumes and like casts of 1,000. All they had were like people, and they're like, well, let's show people doing really awesome stuff with really fun, exciting stories. And it became this wildly fantastic genre. I fucking love martial arts films. They're great. But that just became because like, yeah, we can't afford to do all this other stuff, but we do have 5 people who really know how to do a midair somersault and will punch and kick each other very convincingly for a while. All right. Anything else?
No.
Okay. All right. Oh man, we are going long on this one. I'm sorry, guys. I totally lost track of time. I'm gonna be better at that. All right. So I do have a small thing of tales from the front about what I'm doing right now in the world of design. So I'll be really quick on this one though, but it's been an interesting journey the past week. There's my old man image. So as I said, I've been getting really curious about what goes into sales and that whole entire the pipeline from the customer is aware of the game, the customer wants to play the game, is critical to a project's success. Like I said, if I make the best game in the world but no one wants to buy it, then I've kind of just painted myself into a corner. So I've been getting very curious about how sales work. In particular, I've been diving into brand identity, because what I'd like to be able to do is figure out how I can establish a brand that people will see, be engaged with, and trust. And then once that brand has sold itself, it becomes much easier to sell additional items underneath that brand. That is why when you see the Apple logo, you're like, oh, that's an Apple thing. I want to get it. The reason you see the Nintendo logo, oh, that's a Nintendo thing. I want to get it. This has been, this has been really interesting because it's something that a lot of game companies, I think they market the product itself a little too directly. You want to be marketing an identity. You want to be marketing an experience. Once you've established that, getting customers to buy the product itself becomes far easier. I know too many developers that still are trying to advertise their games based on feature set or genre, or, it's like, it's Diet God of War, which is a kind of a weak sales pitch. I think being able to successfully establish an identity and a genre, an identity and a style and an ethos and a community is really critical for prolonged, commercial success. I've been digging into a lot of interesting stuff regarding luxury brands. That's why we had the Tag Heuer ad, because I've been looking at okay, how do you get someone to pay $10,000 for a Dior handbag? Not saying that's what I want to do, but I'm curious about because if you told me someone would do that, I would have been like, that's insane. You're going to sell a $10,000 handbag, people have to audition to buy, but it is a thing and they are hotly in demand. So that's very interesting. Now, again, that's not an approach I want to take to market, but now that I'm aware that that's out there, that's got me thinking about things more creatively about how to position a brand and a market overall. I mean, you guys have probably seen that I've started to do a bit of a glow up on the FDI brand itself and trying to build up what that brand identity is. And that's part of this whole entire experience. All right. Resources. Okay. Actually, just had a suggestion there about chat about having people joining the class on camera. Okay. I got to work on improving access to people being on cam. All right. Anyways, I'll be trying to figure out the best way to approach that. So that's the class for today. Went long again. My apologies on that. I'll be a little more focused and less rambly next time. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Are there any last minute questions?
See you later.
Okay. I think we're all done then.
Thanks, man.
Great.
Adios.
Right.
Until
Okay,
next
everyone.
week. Goodbye.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.